Hi, Write Writers. Cruz here. Thank you so much for joining me. In this video, we're going to convert an introduction paragraph into a conclusion for Accuplacer Writeplacer. And the following prompt is an example of what could be a possibility as far as an essay prompt given to you by Accuplacer Writeplacer. If you noticed some or took time to watch some previous videos, what I did was I took a former student's essay, specifically his introduction in this case in the previous video, and then I made a new introduction with it. I am going to go back to JR's work and use some of what he wrote for body paragraphs, but if you take a look at what he wrote, there really just was sort of a one sentence introduction and just no real transition into body paragraphs. He just sort of launches in and gives examples, which is great for a body paragraph, but we want to ease the reader in with our introduction. And then as we close the essay and create our conclusion, we want to subtly say goodbye to our reader. So what we're going to do, Write Writers, is I'm going to read the introduction that I created in the previous video, and then I will make a conclusion based on what I wrote in my introduction. Because when you are under time constraints, you always want to make sure you have a solid intro, a solid conclusion, and the body paragraph can be one large paragraph. It does not have to be two or three separate paragraphs. That's why I save the body for last, because then I know the rest of my time I can just focus on the body paragraph. However, as I mentioned in the previous video, you will get points taken away for not having an introduction. You will get points taken away for not having an adequate conclusion. And that is definitely where you do not want to just leave the reader with a one sentence outro or conclusion and say, goodbye, see ya. You don't want that. So that's what this video is about. It's about a conclusion, and we're going to use our introduction to help us construct it. Just as I did, at, as as before, just as I did in the previous video, I'm going to go ahead and place a 10-minute timer for my conclusion. All right, here we go. So for the intro, this is what I wrote. It is early Saturday morning, and my parents ask me to check the mailbox. Apparently, they forgot their parental duties last night. As I spy on their paper gifts, I notice a letter addressed to me. I hurry in the house and sling their mail on the dining room table, but I sequester my envelope and open it as I scurry back to my room. When I tear it open and begin reading the letter, I realize there is a hefty check inside addressed to me. And that's sort of where the 10-minute timer came on. And then I added the following, which is the question now is, what am I going to do with all this newly found money? And maybe I'll leave it with a question mark, but technically, Write Writers, this was not under the 10-minute timer. So I'm going to sort of pretend it's not there right now as I construct my conclusion. So my guess is that the direction that I want to take the reader, or how I want to close this essay, Write Writers, is because I sort of, snuck off with my envelope and letter and the check. The goal is now to, we know it was early Saturday morning, and now what I'm visualizing is, maybe are my parents, they're sitting, they're making breakfast in the kitchen. And maybe I go into the kitchen and then tell them what has transpired. But in this case, I'm going to talk about that I have already come up with some very specific and responsible ways to use the money, including maybe even saving it, because that's what JR had said about saving the money. And that's how I want to end it. So let's see what I can come up with. I now have 8 minutes remaining. Let's see here. So when I tear it open and begin reading the letter, I realize there is a hefty check inside addressed to me. As I hear my parents, I have a lot of as I, so I'm going to take that out. Although that does let the reader know that this is either going to be a complex sentence or a compound complex sentence, depending on if I have a subject and a verb. I think I'm going to leave it. As I, 6 minutes. And I'm going to pretend that I was sort of in this dreamland, fantasy of just like as you drift when you're lost in thought. 5 minutes and 18 seconds. Sizzling skillet in the kitchen and the smell of pancakes awakens me from my lost in thought moment. 3 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. I'm able to explain to my parents exactly how I'm going to save and spend this money. 1 minute and 44 seconds. The sizzling skillet in the kitchen and the smell of pancakes awakens me from my lost in thought moment. And maybe I'll put that in quotations. Being able to explain to my parents exactly how I am going to spend this money will work to my advantage. Trust me, they will be less likely to offer financial counsel and advice. That's a good thing. And that's good news. 53 seconds. All right, writers. That's my timer. So I am going to cancel. I'm going to give myself 1 minute here, as I'm going to give myself 2 minutes as I wrap this up. 2 more minutes, writers. Being able to explain to my parents exactly how I'm going to save and spend this money will work to my advantage. Trust me, they will be less likely to offer financial counsel and advice. And that's good news and that's good news because understanding how to make responsible decisions. Money. That's good news because understanding how to make intelligent decisions with money shows how responsible I am. And that was it, writers. Okay, so I did this one in about 12 minutes. So I, again, sort of opened the scene, closed the scene, and the prompt was, if you suddenly received a large sum of money, what would you do with it? And in this case, again, I read the introduction and I'll just review again the conclusion. And knowing that what JR created, we're going to definitely use for the body paragraph in the middle. And again, I may decide to make it one body paragraph or two body paragraphs. It just depends. Well, we'll talk about that more, writers, when we get to the body paragraph side. Let's just go ahead and stick with the intro, or with the conclusion rather, because I will go off on a tangent, as you know. The sizzling skillet in the kitchen and the smell of pancakes awakens me from my lost in thought moment. Being able to explain to my parents exactly how I'm going to save and spend this money will work to my advantage. Trust me, they will be less likely to offer financial counsel and advice. That's good news because understanding how to make intelligent decisions with money shows how responsible I am. So I almost said, fiscal decisions. So that would be another way to demonstrate your grasp of vocabulary. You know, if I added, let's say, intelligent fiscal decisions, and thought about that, but then I said, your average, not your average student, but just again, under the time constraints, these words are just not going to necessarily pop into your head when you're writing. And so I went ahead, and even though it did come, I did think about using the word fiscal, because usually I hear like fiscally responsible. But I thought, this isn't an economics class. This is an essay under time constraints with 10 minutes. And then I added an extra 2 minutes. So it took me 12 minutes. So technically, this essay right now is at 22 minutes. So if I only had 40 minutes, 40 minutes total, that leaves me with technically 18 minutes remaining. So I'm going to go ahead and make a note of that, right, writers, so that I am aware that, again, depending on what state I'm living in, I may only have 18 minutes left to then construct my body paragraphs. Obviously, in this case, I'm going to use JRs to construct it because I want you to see how I take what a student did, what JR did, and manipulate it and sort of synthesize it. You could say customize it to level up his writing. And that's really going to be the point of the next video. I hope this was helpful. And again, the goal, right, writers, here was to be able to move from, I always tell students, you should be able to read the introduction and the conclusion almost as if they were one paragraph, as if it just goes from one to the other. And if it's pretty smooth, the transition between the intro and the conclusion without the body paragraph, then it will feel smooth for the person who's reading your essay. Thank you so much again for those of you taking your Accuplacer Writeplacer. Good luck, everyone, and feel free to offer some feedback. Again, shout outs to Aamir on this for again inspiring me and asking, making a request, and saying, please do more Accuplacer Writeplacer videos. All right, take care, right writers. Have a good one. Bye bye.